The sun is shining bright above the stars. Shit. Opened up the wrong page. Sorry about that. Okay. Sorry I didn't stream during the week. I've been really tired. There we go. Just need to message some of my followers on Discord. Hey, oh, Roblox, I see. Hello. This is Generic Fool's Test. I am sorry for starting later than I normally do on Saturdays for streaming. Normally I tend to wake up earlier than I set my alarm, which gives me a bit more time to get stuff done and then start streaming at like 4 or sometimes slightly earlier. But this time I don't know. I tried going to sleep earlier and then I woke up less than an hour after going to sleep. Couldn't fall back asleep immediately. So, I woke up at the time I'm scheduled to wake up, which means I took less time, and then I always try to answer messages before I stream. And, well, some people were asking me for some really long things. I didn't even get through all the messages I wanted to answer. But anyways. I don't know. I get a lot of artists asking me for commissions, and it's sometimes, and like I can't currently get stuff, but due to me not having a ton of money, and then 2, I'm saving up for things, both IRL and also for holiday gifts. And well, it's just kind of like, some of them are just like, okay, well, your work looks nice. I don't think I'll be able to afford a commission for a while because I need to pay for some IRL things and some other stuff, and I'm literally saving up as much money as I can, and I can't really afford a commission right now. And then most artists are just like, okay, just let me know when you do. And then some of them are just like, but my deals are great, just do it. And I'm like, but I can't. I don't have the money right now. Just do it. And I'm like, I can't. But you really should buy my work. I'm like, I cannot afford to do that right now. Please stop. Because, when you're just constantly telling me over and over again to buy your work, and I'm like, I didn't say I wouldn't buy your work. I can't afford it now. Please stop. You acting like that does not make me want to buy your work. It makes me consider not buying your work. It's good to persevere, but when you go too hard, you turn people off. But either way, I'm going to finish up what's left of this video. I'm going to go a little bit further back. I might have tried to react to something else, but due to the fact that I have actually, I'm sorry, it just took too long with everything. And I don't think I have enough time. So I'll just begin. And I hope more people come, because I was starting to get my view count. I'm so close to getting affiliate. I just need an average of 3 viewers. That's the final thing I need to reach. And I'm at like 2.75 average viewers. Or was it, I don't know, between 2.75 and like 2.9. So if this is a stream where I just get 1 viewer the entire time, I will be so sad. But either way, I digress. Also, it doesn't help that this is listed as a just streaming stream. Either way.
Other men that can fight. He calls for whenever they see that the Germans are starting to set up an attack, they're going to report back where the Germans are going to attack, and all of the men that Lomell has, all 40 to 50 guys, are going to run and...
Alright, this is about Leonard Lomell, who, to give you a summary, he was one of the men in charge of taking Pointe du Hoc on D-Day. He trained hard. He convinced people to let him get a higher rank so that he could make more money to pay so he could send more money back to his family. He got to Pointe du Hoc. It turns out that the guns that were there were fake, and he single-handedly, not single-handedly, he and one other guy snuck to where the actual guns were and took them out. He then went and destroyed the guns because before he went to take the guns, they took out a little command bunker that was where the real guns were supposed to be. And coincidentally, they took out all the people inside of that little bunker. So they didn't notify the people who were manning the guns that they were being attacked, which meant they were all slacking off. And so all the guns were unguarded. Now, he went there with 2 guys, so he only had 2 thermite grenades, which are basically anti-equipment grenades. Thermite melts things very, very well, is a massive understatement of how effective it was. Usually you'd use a thermite grenade by activating it and then dropping it down the barrel of a big artillery cannon. And, well, he could only do that with 2 of them. He sabotaged the guns before he went back to get more. Well, either way, I guess, he did a lot of crazy things that were, crazy here. He wasn't a crazy man. Just like, it's insane considering the things that he did and how much danger he put himself in and how he got out almost scot-free, except for he was shot. When he got off the boat, so to say, he was shot. And, after all that battle, he was like, wait a second, I forgot, I got shot. And the injury was not good. So he had to go back to England to get healed. They were like, you've done enough, you can go back. At which point, he was like, fuck that, I want to fight. So he snuck back to the front line. And coincidentally, because the Germans were putting up such a fierce fight, his men were still around the same location. So he was like, I am back, and they're like, oh, okay. Good to see you back, sir. And so he continued to fight. And right now they're trying to maintain control over a hill that the the German army of World War II are fighting to take back, because if the Americans keep control of that hill, they will see the big force that the Germans are trying to sneak in. And that it's pretty hard to have a sneak attack when the enemy can see everything you're doing. And that's about where they are.
Meet that attack head on and drive them back. And that's exactly what happens. Shortly after that shelling, the Germans attack. Lomell and his men meet him head on. They drive him back. They get shelled again. They scout. They find where the Germans are going to attack again. They meet it head on again. And this goes on over and over and over again. Lomell and his men are running around all over this hill, getting in every single firefight that there is. And when they're not doing that, they're trying to render aid to all the guys that are wounded. But to the Germans, it feels a lot different, because every time they try to attack from a different spot at a different angle, they run face first into 50 pissed off Army Rangers. So the Germans are thinking there's like 1,000 Army Rangers on top of this hill, but regardless, they keep on attacking and they keep on shelling them. And after 24 hours, when they're supposed to be getting reinforcements, Lomell is down to himself and about 25 other men that can fight. He calls for reinforcements, but there's none available because the Germans are also furiously attacking the town next to the hill as well. D-Day is commonly referred to as the longest day, but according to Lomell, this was by far the longest day of his life, and it made D-Day look like child's play. Which sounds absolutely crazy, but if anybody would know, it's him. At this point, there's no reinforcements on the way. He has a ton of injured men, a ton of men have been killed, and he only has like 25 guys left that can even kind of fight. He knows that he can't keep doing this much longer, if at all. So at this point, Lomell pulls his NCOs aside and asks them what they think about retreating. He figures they can get all the ambulatory men off the hill, and all the men that are too wounded to be moved can be captured by the Germans. He's been fighting them for the past 6 months, and he knows that the Germans are at least going to give them aid.
What in the world?
The best we came up with, sir, is like, fuck it, you know? Fuck it.
It's gonna be a shit show no matter what we do.
All right.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was just checking my message. I was just checking the stream on my phone, and my phone had gone off. That only occurs if the stream like gets cut off or something. And I checked back on it, and it was still on the, like, you know, stream starting screen on Twitch, which is, God, that's really not boding well. Oh well.
Fuck it.
Every single one of his sergeants is against it, and they are ready to fight to the death about it. So Lomell says, okay, that's what we'll do. And the next day, they do the exact same thing all over again, and somehow they managed to hold on to this hill. That night, after 40 hours of straight combat, the Germans finally let up, and Lomell's able to radio down to the town and say that it's all quiet on the hill. And apparently they stopped attacking at the town too, so the Rangers down there are finally able to come up and start helping carry all of these wounded men down from this hill. Worth noting, if you've never carried a grown man on a litter, it is a motherfucker of a job, and that's if it's in good conditions in daylight on level ground.
The Fat Electrician worked in a ambulance, or a military ambulance rather. I was probably, like, you know, in the Iraq War or Afghan War, or one of the wars that we recently did. And I keep on tending to make him stop on things that make him look weird. I apologize. But, yeah.
I can't imagine having to carry this many men in the dark down a hill covered in snow on a litter after 40 hours of straight combat. But the Rangers somehow managed to get it done, and despite his hand being messed up, Lomell is the last man to leave the top of that hill as he lets the other Rangers take it over. During the 40 hours of combat for Hill 400, Lomell and 106 combat, the Germans finally let up, and Lomell's able to radio down to the town and say that it's all quiet on the hill. And apparently they stopped attacking at the town too, so the Rangers down there are finally able to come up and start helping carry all of these wounded men down from this hill. Worth noting, if you've never carried a grown man on a litter, it is a motherfucker of a job, and that's if it's in good conditions in daylight on level ground. I can't imagine having to carry this many men in the dark down a hill covered in snow on a litter after 40 hours of straight combat. But the Rangers somehow manage to get it done, and despite his hand being messed up, Lomell is the last man to leave the top of that hill as he lets the other Rangers take it over. During the 40 hours of combat for Hill 400, Lomell and 106 other Rangers were wounded and 19 men were killed in action. 24 hours after the other Rangers take over, they hand it over to another Army unit that relieves them, and 9 days after that, Hill 400 is retaken by the Germans during the Battle of the Bulge. When the Battle of the Bulge kicks off, Lomell is in a convoy headed back to Paris, hopefully to get surgery to save his finger, and because this major German offensive just kicks off, his convoy gets diverted and they have to go hold a road in case the Germans show up there, and sure enough, they do. So now, Lomell, being the only officer there, has to lead this ragtag group of whoever the fuck soldiers into combat to fight the Germans. He does. They repel the Germans, but Lomell ends up getting burned and blown up and is now suffering from internal bleeding. So now he's in a field hospital getting treated for internal bleeding, and while he's in there, General Eisenhower signs an order that any soldier that's been wounded at least twice and has earned a medal for valor gets 30 days of leave. Lomell qualifies, and he absolutely wants to go home for a month, understandably so. The problem is the doctor's not going to release him until he can submit a stool sample that shows that he's not still suffering from internal bleeding. So he does what absolutely anybody would do. He has one of his buddies shit in that cup for him, and then he goes home.
What am I, a chimpanzee?
Oh, God. Duke Nukem Forever, reference. No.
Once he gets home, he has to undergo multiple surgeries to save the use of his hand. Once it's all said and done, the war's basically over. He's not getting shipped back overseas. So then, Leonard Lomell goes back home, and he proceeds to do absolutely nothing, which completely justified. The guy probably needs a minute to decompress. So this goes on for a couple of months, and after a while, his mom has finally had enough of it, and she's like, Leonard, go talk to that girl you were talking to before the war or something. Get out of my house. And Lomell is like, Mom, I don't have anything. I don't have a car. I sent all the money I made during the war back home to you guys so you guys could get by. I didn't save any for myself. I gotta figure out what I'm gonna do with my life. At which point, Mom, being a complete badass, is like, here you go, kid. I saved $1,500 out of the money you sent me. And he's able to go and buy a brand new car. So he shows up with his new wheels, impresses his old sweetheart Charlotte. They start dating again. He starts going to law school. He graduates law school. He marries Charlotte. A couple of years into being a lawyer, he gets in trouble because he wrestles with another lawyer inside of the judge's office to settle the dispute. But, you know, everything's going great. It's fantastic. Ends up having a bunch of kids, running his own law firm. The poor kid that was literally catching fish and clams and selling them to restaurants during the Great Depression that grew up dirt poor is now a millionaire lawyer, and he is living the American dream. And my favorite part of the story is he gets older in his late 50s, his 60s, his 70s. He gets the opportunity to go back to the places that he had battles in World War II. He gets to go back to Pointe du Hoc. He gets to go back to Hill 400. And when he's at Hill 400, he's kind of a celebrity and everybody wants to talk to him, and it's because the German historians and the German active duty military people there that are giving him the tour and everything want to know how many men did he have on top of that hill. And he's like, not many, why? And the Germans showed him their books and translated it from their perspective, and up until this point, they had always been under the impression that the Americans had a massive force on top of Hill 400, and that's why the Germans weren't able to retake it. Not only did Lomell's battle tactic work at the time, but it worked so well that he had them fooled for 40 years after the fact. Now, because Hill 400, and by extension, the entire battle of the...
I mean, a lot of people talk about, like, you know, the Russians and the, like, Germans in the war, but the Americans did a lot. Like, people like to say, like, oh, you know, you joined in late, you did a bunch of stuff. It's like, we basically supplied the war. I mean, there are some things that are also, before it sounds like I'm, as the youth these days say, glazing. Before I try and make it sound like I'm a blind patriot who only supports not the U.S., there was a lot of stuff that we had to change in order to fully commit to the war. Like, here's a question that people don't often learn in the U.S., or at least back when I was learning it, we didn't learn it. Now, the German forces of the Second World War made a bunch of laws that were meant to put down the people they don't like. Jews, gypsies, other things like that. Now, when how do you think they made those laws? Because, you know, if you're not used to making laws, it's kind of hard to. Well, the answer is they looked to America. And they saw the Jim Crow laws and some of the laws that were still around at that time. And they were just like, oh, we just need to adapt this slightly and it will work for everything we do. So World War II Germans basically just copied our homework. And then furthermore, because the reason why we had to change so much is we claimed that the World War II Germans were bad because they were racist and they were like white supremacists, which, you know, is kind of a problem when a bunch of parts of your country are doing the same thing. And one thing that's also not often covered is that one of the reasons why we had some difficulty at the start going up against Japan, because Japan used slavery. And although officially slavery did not exist, it still did exist in some form in some parts of the country. And it was sort of like a not so secret, if you get what I'm saying. People knew, but nothing was done about it. So in order to be able to fight against them as the moral forces, we had to go around and free what few slaves were still around. I learned a little bit about that. Plenty of countries don't cover things that are shameful. But the difference is, if you don't talk about that stuff, then one, you miss an important context in history. Like, why is it that certain people were a certain way? And it's just like, well, you know, we just can't see why, like, because it's just not recorded. But meanwhile, if you see something like that, it can explain why certain things were so prevalent. But either way, America did do its best to abolish those things. I mean, now I'm not going to talk about modern days because it still does. Some forms of slavery still exist. It's just basically in the form of work contracts now. And other things. And there's different ways of making it. It's almost impossible to fully get rid of that type of thing. But either way, I've said this before, like, people argue that no one side of the Allies was completely indispensable. Like, the war if the Russians didn't get involved, the war still would have been won. It just probably would have taken a few months or a year or more time to accomplish it. If the British didn't get involved, I mean, well, as long as they still allowed us to use their country as a springboard, then that would still be fine. Though that one's a bit harder to say no to, because the British were fighting for a long time. Although they also did some silly, wacky stuff that sort of helped the Germans in the beginning. But I complained about that in another video, so I'm just not going to do that. If the U.S. military did not get involved, then probably the war would have been won, either taking a few more months or potentially maybe a few more years to get done, but it would have ended up in Allied victory. However, if the U.S. did not get involved at all, period, during the war, then the war would have been lost. And I'm saying that's because of Lend-Lease. The United Kingdom did not have enough food and supplies. They only managed to survive because of, well, I mean, they had home gardens, so they could augment some of their stuff a little bit, but the home gardens couldn't produce enough food to supply everyone in the country. It's because literally America was sending wave after wave of cargo ships full of supplies, full of food, full of everything that the people in the UK needed to survive. And tons of Americans died bringing that food and supplies to the UK through the German U-boat efforts. It's the same with the Soviet Union. We provided them with tons and tons of equipment, tons and tons of food, and tons of supplies. Now, of course, according to, the Russians, it didn't do anything. Well, at the same time, if you look at what little records do exist at the time of, the Soviet pilots and crews that did manage to use the vehicles we gave them, they did a lot of American stuff. For one, the Soviet Union produced a ton of materials, vehicles, and supplies for their troops, but they did it by cutting a ton of corners. And some of the corners they cut were things that were absolutely needed. People talk about the T-34 as if it was some miracle weapon or miracle thing. I used to watch the Military History Channel when I was younger. And God, did they glaze that tank. Or talk about it as if it was the greatest thing ever made. And it's just kind of if you look at the actual records, and if you try and just all the stuff, it was not done well. Maybe one day I'll react to the Laser Pig T-34 video. But it's people say the T-34 was a cheap tank made quickly, and it's no, it was actually supposed to be a high-end tank, which was expensive to make. They just produced it cheaply. They cut out a ton of stuff, and I'll give you this: if the vehicle was so great, why is it that it broke down so frequently? And why is it that it experienced so many mechanical failures that Stalin and the party leadership were this vehicle is malfunctioning so often, it could only be due to sabotage or mass sabotage. When if you look at some of the things that were sometimes cut to make the tanks faster, one of the things was sealant, which, if you don't know what that is, you see, in vehicles there are things applied so that when water comes on the tank, it doesn't fall into the interior of the vehicle. So apparently, sometimes when it rained and you were in a T-34, a bunch of water would accumulate inside the tank if you were using one of the tanks which they decided this one they're just not going to put the sealant in. and or the seals on the hatches, and it could interfere with the electronics. Other things that were sometimes not considered like vital. Now, if you are somebody, I forgive you if you're people watching this actually know about tanks. But for those who don't, the way people used to see out of a tank when they were not in combat, they would just open up a little hatch in front so that they could clearly see where they're going. But when you're being fired at, you can't exactly do that. So they would use what's called a periscope, like on a submarine. And it works in a similar fashion. It's two mirrors that allow you to see around you by turning the periscope. Now, on some T-34s, I don't know the exact number, they would say, well, getting a mirror would take too much time. So what they would do is they would, just take a piece of metal and shine it and put that inside. Now, as you can imagine, it's not like they were taking chrome or a really shaggy. Sorry. I apologize for that. It's not like they were taking. 1 second. I see a message. Oh, never mind. That was an old message. None of my regular viewers are coming to the stream. It appears I will be stuck with only 0 viewers. The one viewer is me. I am the one who is... Oh, man. That's not great. But either way. I'm sorry. I was looking at the time, or how long it was. But as you can imagine, since they're not using chrome or a highly reflective... I was saying refractive. Reflective material, it was hard to see out of said improvised telescope. Now, what made it harder is, since, as I said, the sealant, I think it's called sealant, whatever, the rubber linings that were meant to keep them sealed were also considered optional. If you're using a telescope or a periscope and water and moisture gets in, it gets foggy, which means even if you were in the ones that did have a proper mirror inside, so you would sometimes be able to see, if it wasn't sealed properly, then it would fog up, or the mirrors would fog up, and you would not be able to see anything anyways. There are a number of stories of T-34 drivers not being able to recognize the enemy, or thinking that they're attacking the enemy when they're attacking an ally, or following around a enemy because they don't realize it's the enemy and they think it's their tank group, or them driving into trees, or them driving into other stuff. I mean, some people try to go like, oh, the tough Russians ramming people. Well, yes, some people did ram their tanks. But, In some cases, it's because the Soviet tank crews couldn't see where the hell they were going. I don't know. I could spend an entire time just complaining about the things said about the T-34. Simplify it, there are hard elements and there are soft elements. The hard elements are the things people tend to obsess over. Like, how strong is the armor? How fast is the tank? How big is the gun? And how much damage can it do? Which, you know, that's sort of like game mechanic stuff. Where it's just like, okay, because these numbers are higher, this tank is better. But then there are the soft elements, which you'll find that tanks which are better in the soft areas are usually better. The soft areas are like, how easy is the tank to learn to drive? How easy is the tank to use? How easy is it to maintain the tank? And also, like, how easy is it for the crew to get out of the tank and survive? Or, well, to crew survival rate. If the tank is destroyed, how easy is it to recover the crew? And how many of those guys are getting out? Now, a lot of people who talk about World War II tanks will not shut the fuck up about slanted armor and act like it's a World War II thing. Which, if you look at things throughout history, that's not true. That's not true at all. It's like the advantages of sloped or slanted armor and or fortifications is something that's been known for a long time. That's why there are certain walls of certain forts and castles which have slanted or sloped walls, because they know that cannonballs will have a chance to bounce off them or other things, and that it provides a slight advantage. The disadvantage with sloped armor is that it drastically decreases the interior of the tank, which means that the crew is packed in there like sardine, like no, inside normal tanks. The crew may be packed in there like a can of sardines. That's why tank crews are usually filled with short people. And apparently, even for short people, the T-34 was rather rough to get inside of. But also, the T-34 was hard to get in and out of, so the crew survival rate for that tank was apparently abysmal. Like, very low. There were very few chances of any of the crew getting out, or maybe one or two who were in the gun, who were right next to the hatch. But, people try to say the saying, which is, quantity has a quality of its own. Which, you know, people who say that will, like, you know, they'll point at their head meme and go like, oh yes, it's so brilliant. Well, the fact of the matter is, the more of stuff you have, the more you have to maintain, the more people you have to train. And if you have a ton of tanks where it's very unlikely for any of the crew to escape, if the tank is hit, that means you need even more people to train. If the tank breaks down more often, that's even more man hours you need to spend in fixing the tank. And if you combine all those things together, then you just get a sort of a death trap, which, you know, veteran tank crews are important for several reasons. One, they're effective. They understand how to use the vehicle better. People who have been using a tank a lot more, are better at understanding the strengths and weaknesses of a vehicle, which makes it easier to train new recruits into how to better operate the tank, what works, what doesn't work. And more importantly, they may be better at helping the engineers figure out how to better improve the tank or how to fix certain issues, because they know the vehicle better. But if you don't have many veterans or veteran tank crews, then, well, it's just not going to end as well. Okay, well, either way. Taking too long.
The Hertzkin Forest was such an unnecessary and bloody battle. It was deemed a huge embarrassment and failure by the upper level leaderships of the U.S. military. Because of that, a lot of the men that partook in that battle that did courageous, heroic, incredible things like Lomell, they never ended up getting the recognition they deserved because the upper level leadership just didn't want to acknowledge that this battle even happened. They just wanted to sweep it under the rug and not talk about it. Despite that, over 60 years after the fact, Lomell would finally get awarded a Silver Star for his actions on Hill 400 in 2007. In the later years of his life, Leonard Lomell would end up getting a lot of attention for being the hero that he was during World War II. And his response to that was always, we weren't heroes, we were just good Rangers. Thank you for watching. Best way to support the channel is go buy some merch over at thefatelectrician.com. Whack bang, out.
Oh, man.
You know what? I'm just going to level with you guys. There's no way that you can research people like this and not feel like a giant bitch the entire time, okay? I feel like a big tough guy because I can do a lot of push-ups and I've been doing jiu-jitsu for 15 years. And then you start reading about Bud Lomell, who got shot at D-Day and didn't just walk it off. He proceeded to climb a 100-foot cliff in 10 minutes after getting shot, while he's also continuing to get shot at by Nazis with machine guns. And then he goes and takes out an entire artillery battery by himself, saving tens of thousands of people. And that's just the beginning of this dude's story. Dudes were just built different back then. I don't even know. Regardless, I guess now at least we know the answer to who's the most important man at D-Day. Thanks for watching. I gotta go.
When our ears returned normal and I was sitting with Jack that night or the next night, Jack said, it's a damn good thing you didn't need me to fire my weapon. I only had one clip. He only had one clip. I said, where was your other ammunition? He said, I lost it when we were running down that road, and I don't know where. I just had one clip in my pocket, one clip in my submachine gun, and I said, well, why didn't you ask me for mine? He said, I didn't think about it. So I practically got an unarmed guy up there with one or two clips.
But yeah, that is crazy. But yeah, the rest of this is going to just be a just chatting stream, because I don't think I have enough time. Oh man, this is, wait a second. Just, yeah, I just don't think I'm going to be able to, watch anything else. Time-wise, I could, but I don't want to just make it be me blankly staring at a screen and being quiet the entire time, and I also don't want it to be another case of me not having enough time to finish something. So, I don't know. Damn, this is literally just going to be a one-viewer stream. A technical one-viewer stream, because, as I said, the only viewer is me on my phone. Ah, yes. I had been pretty happy before. I had been, really expecting that I would be able to make affiliate. But if I have another stream like this, I will have undone a lot of the hard work I put into stuff like this. I don't know. I guess I'll just talk a bit about some of my frustrations since no one's around here. If anyone comes in and talks, then I'll be able to switch to something interesting. Until then, I doubt anyone's going to watch this stream, especially now that we are no longer talking about military stuff and we are not covering Fat Electrician stuff. So, now I guess I'm just going to talk about some of my insecurities due to the fact that no one's going to be listening to this. Oh boy! Sorry about that. Well, the holiday season is beginning, and I am really not looking forward to it. I work at a bakery, and people may not know this, but I technically started streaming like a few years ago, and I actually stopped streaming around the time of, well, the holiday season of the year I started streaming, because I just had so much work and I was just so tired that I really could not focus. I was just going to streams and not being able to function, just being so tired and out of it, and it was just not great. So and also I was getting too stressed at work. I didn't have a lot to do, so I basically was just really, really tired. So I had to quit streaming for a while, and for a really long time I couldn't really feel like I could maintain streaming because my real job was just killing me. Now, a lot of people say that, like, why don't you just quit? Find a different job. Well, it took me 3 years of unemployment to find my current job, and I only got that through a disability support program. And if not having a job sucks, but not having a job for 3 years when you are actively every day trying to get a job and trying to go out there and put yourself, just put yourself out there. It is demoralizing, to say the least. And I guess I've told this to several people, but I'll spare the story, the full story. I'll just simplify it as, due to some events and a misunderstanding, a bunch of my friends did not speak to me. And due to me making several mistakes and lying a lot previously, when some bad things happened in my life, my parents didn't believe me because I had lied so much in the past. So even though I was being completely honest, they couldn't trust me. So they didn't let me really do much to de-stress. I had also lost my... God, it sounds like bad fan fiction. And then the hero's grandfather died. He lost the best, his car, which was like the memento, to his dear grandfather. He ruined he was doing everything he could to improve. He applied himself, worked himself to the bone, and then life still just fucked him over. And then his girlfriend left him. Yes. Fun times. But, yeah, as I said, if I needed to go anywhere at the time, because I didn't have a car, I needed to call my parents to give me a ride, or I had to take the metro, which, unfortunately, a lot of the places that, at the time, that were looking for hiring people, we're not exactly easily metro accessible, and when you combine the fact that even I have social anxiety, and I get anxious when I'm around in places where I'm not fully comfortable with, and I don't know, just that time is sort of depressing for me. I tried so hard, I put my everything. For once in my life, I fought tooth and nail to try and accomplish something, and it's sort of bittersweet. I succeeded at what I was trying to do. There should have been no possible way I could have succeeded at either of the things I was trying to do with how things had went. But due to my own hard work, I had managed to complete it, but due to, well, you know, things not quite, well, I guess there were two classes that, due to a long list of things, I wasn't able to actually complete. I passed them, but due to things I didn't get a good grade. I got a barely passing grade, but if you had heard the full story, just me getting a barely passing would sort of be a miracle. And basically my parents interpreted me as screwing around and just not doing things because, you know, I had done that before. Yeah. Well, anyways, not talking to people really outside of, you know, trying to apply for a job and trying to, like, you know, do that type of stuff, and it will affect you. Human beings are social creatures, and even the people who are introverts still need some form of social interaction to, or, you know, some kind of interaction. And, well, some people would say, you know, just talk to your online friends, but I didn't have online friends. I didn't have an online presence. I didn't use social media. So during those 3 years, I was just by myself with my own negative thoughts. And, well, that was not really a good thing. And I can tell you that when you don't talk to anyone for that long, you start to lose your social skills, and you start to lose your vocabulary, and you, well, it does a number on your confidence. I only really got my current job because, as I said, through a support program for people with disabilities. I have a social disability and probably a bit of a mental one. 1 second. Oh, that's amusing. I didn't realize I got several messages. Okay, I'll check that. Yeah, sorry about that. Just, the people I was hoping could come are just not able to come, but that's, you know, different time zones and all that stuff. I'm only talking about the negative aspects of my life. In a lot of my life, I've been blessed, and I've been in situations where, you know, I've had some really bad things happen in my life, but at the same time, I've been lucky to have, for most of it, parents who are really supportive. It just, you know, my parents weren't supportive at that time I was talking about before, because, you know, I had done so much to sort of betray their trust. But, you know, that should say how bad I was. Well, okay, let's say not. I didn't do anything that would be considered a crime. I was just sort of like an annoying piece of shit. Not, still sort of good person. People liked me, but the problem is I would basically socialize too much and not focus enough on my classes. I was, at the time, a somewhat intelligent person. So, you know, I would basically just half-ass everything. My grade point average is still pretty good, all things considered. Even though I, for so long, just sort of half-ass classes or just barely put any effort forward. Yes, I know. It's so relatable. Talking like stuff like that. It's sort of like my mental disability also is just that my mental calculations tend to be very slow. Whenever I do, I'm generally correct. It's just that it takes me a while to perform the calculations or to think things through in my head, and I'm bleeding like a weirdo. What do you mean, like? I don't know. Whenever I'm by myself, I tend to be melancholy. God, there must be at least 30 or 40 different incarnations of this talk on different streams. I don't know, there's a lot of unresolved feelings from back then. And if I complain too much about and really it's sort of just like one of the few things I can talk about when no one's around, because if I talk too much about my work, I may accidentally give away key information which would, you know, help people find out where I am, who I am, or where I work. And really all I'm doing right now is just whining. So, you know, nobody's watching, so I might as well just, you know, deal with it. I know, peak content. For the people on YouTube, there's no one there, I'm just talking to myself, literally. No. I'm far more amusing when somebody else comes in. I'm going to have to leave soon anyways for work, so I think rather than continue on with this bullcrap, woe is me BS, which, you know, that's not my intention. Don't pity me, don't feel sorry for me. If you wanted to, well, I mean, a few things I guess I should explain before I leave. I have a few conditions which makes it sort of difficult for me. I have Asperger's syndrome, which I won't give you the full rundown of that. I'll give you the brief summary. I have difficulty reading social cues, or in some case I don't pick them up at all. Now, I don't, to put them in layman's terms, or simpler terms, rather, I don't necessarily understand the intention behind what people are saying or how my own actions will be interpreted by others. The part of my brain that regulates that and handles that just does not properly function. I mean, don't get me wrong, if somebody's screaming at me, I can tell they're probably not happy. But for a lot of the more subtle or the non-verbal part of the communication, I am completely inept at it. I don't seem like I'm that bad currently, because every time I mess up in a situation like that, I try to learn from it. And I try to apply, you know, what happened, what did I do wrong, what can I learn from this, is there something I can try to pick up. So anytime I'm in a social situation, I try to think back to all the times I've horribly screwed up social situations, and basically will, you know, try to think, has this happened before? What occurred then? Combine that with the fact that I try to be very polite to a lot of people. Now, a lot of people tend to interpret me trying to be so polite as me being a nice person, when really it's just that if people interpret you as a nice person, if you accidentally say something or unintentionally say something rude or mean, or in occasional situations nasty, they're more likely to give you the benefit of the doubt if they know that at your core you're not that kind of person. I don't know. I have some trust issues because a lot of people I tell that stuff to tend to go like, oh no, it's okay, I understand. And then I say, like, if I do anything to bug you, please tell me. The last thing I want to do is make you feel comfortable or hurt your feelings. And people are like, no, okay, understood. And it's like, am I bothering you? And it's just like, no, everything's fine. And then they'll explode at me one day. And it's like, why won't you stop doing that? And I'm like, doing what? And they're just like, doing this thing here, it's really annoying, I can't believe you do this. And I'm like, I didn't realize I was bugging you, and I asked you if I was doing anything that was annoying you. So why didn't you just tell me then? And then they're just like, oh, I felt bad for saying anything about it, but it's your fault for not picking up on it. And I'm just like, I can't pick up on it. My brain... It's like asking a colorblind person to pick up the color they can't see. I mean, I'm sure even with them, like, they can sort of, I guess, eventually guess the hue from the shade of gray that they see. But in my case, it's like I can try to guess from the previous times I've horribly screwed up social situations or made mistakes, but you know, even then I am guessing at it. It's just, I mean, I've also taken like intro to psychology, which did help a little bit, but I could never fully implement that data. It just helps me sort of rationalize people and help me sort of make people like me more through the various actions and things I take, which tend to be just there. Combine that with the fact that I'm also got ADHD, which, hi person, I'm probably going to leave soon. You appreciate you coming by, but this stream is extraordinarily uneventful. There's no one here. And I was just going on whinging about my hot deal in life where, you know, just like, wah, I have a condition which is actually not all that rare. Wah, my health is actually not all that bad. Wah, in spite of this, people still seem to like me. Wah. You know, just first world problems, as they say, I guess. How are you doing, person? I hope you slept well. Sorry if I dropped a lot on your plate. Once again, OBS is not showing your responses properly. I'm glad to hear you're okay. Anything special? Alright, well, sometimes it's better when nothing good or bad happens. Uneventful is better than bad. But yeah. I'm not sure if I'm going to do... I'm going to try to stream after work today, because last week I didn't stream after work at all. I may try to continue doing Galarians. I'll try to play Cult of the Lamb sometime during this month. But it's approaching the time of year where I'm just getting really tired from work and everything. So, I don't know, I might try. I don't know, just, I've been feeling more pain lately. I had to leave really early yesterday, which really didn't feel great. And then I just took it easy the entire day. And the end result is that I sort of feel better now today, so I'm hoping that my work for today won't be too harsh. I still need to save up money to get a present for... There's a birthday for... One of my friend's birthdays is this month, and I only found out about it recently, so I'm trying to save up money to get them a nice present. Especially since they've been having a bit of a rough time. So I want to try to help them. And then after that, I need to start saving up for the holiday season. And for friends, as well as trying to save up for that microphone and headset that I need to be able to stream properly. Because, you know, it's not good if this thing just disintegrates. So have you tried the cookie recipe I sent you? Or do you have any interest in trying any of the recipes I sent you, person? Alright. So, would you want to try any of them? Like, did that cookie really interest you? Or was it too much? Because it was a lot of chocolate chips. Sometimes people say more, well, more can be more. But yeah. But some people are like, that's too much. There's a certain balance of, having a good flavor and then just being beaten to death with something. It's just like some people are like, I can never have too much sugar. Well, drinking pure syrup is also not exactly something people would like. By the way, one of the things that we do at my bakery to help make sure that the cakes that we have are a little bit more moist, especially since we have to make cakes in bulk, is that we apply a simple syrup to the cake itself. That way it stays a little bit more moist and doesn't dry out. Though we only apply that as we are, making the cake itself. What we have to do is we have to bake a lot of these cakes, and then we'll cut them into like different slices to make different layers. And what we'll do is we'll like put a layer down after we make the edge or the edge of the cake, and then we'll put a layer down. We'll spray simple syrup in from a bottle that we have. We make the syrup ourselves. Then we'll put the buttercream or whatever we're having as the filling, and then we'll put another layer, and then we'll do the same. We'll put more syrup on that layer of cake, put more buttercream or whatever filling we need there, and well, if it's a fruit cake, we'll put pieces of fruit in between the layers after the buttercream. But and then we'll put the final layer on top, and then put well, technically I think it's the bottom because we flip it upside down. It's just easier to make the cakes upside down from the cake pan that we have because we just flip it and do that. I'm sorry. I hope I'm not boring you to tears by talking about work. That's a long silence there. Yeah. Well, being a baker or working at I'm not a baker. I work at a bakery, but that doesn't mean I'm a baker. Is not exactly an easy job, and it's a job that a lot of people don't understand how hard it is. Because they're like, I made a cake with my mom when I was a little kid. It wasn't that hard. It's like, the difference is scale. When you're making a cake, if you're making a small cake, or even if you're making what's considered a large cake for a party, it's not the same as having to make cakes in bulk like I do. We are not an industrial facility. I use a machine to reduce the size of the pot to roll out pie dough and cookie dough, but it's all it is. I still have to cut everything out manually by hand, and that's not easy. Also, the mixing bowls we use are significantly larger. When your mixing bowl is big enough to hide somebody inside of it, and I'm not even talking about a short person. If I, a 6 foot tall person, scrunched up into a ball, and you turned one of the mixing bowls over me, I would be completely hidden inside. That's how big it is. And as you can imagine, since it's made out of metal, it is quite heavy. If you work at a bakery, you cannot be weak. There are a lot of people who are just like, oh, I just love baking at home and doing all that stuff. I'm going to be a baker. and then they try to, and they don't realize the sheer volume of like manual labor, amount of strength they need, if you are tall and everything you're using is meant for short people, you're going to develop so many back issues. And even if you're not lifting that stuff, which for a while I did, but after getting the nerve damage in my arm and having the surgery to fix it and various other things, I just don't do that stuff anymore. It's still annoying because I'm the strongest person in the entire bakery, so whenever people have trouble lifting things, they often call me because they're not able to do it. It's worse though when I'm carrying this big heavy thing, which may be like 50 pounds worth of something, and I can lift 50 pounds. Not that hard. It's not that hard to lift that, but unlike with lifting weights where you're just doing reps and you're putting it down between each thing or something like that, when you're carrying something that's awkwardly shaped, is heavy, and then the person who you're holding it for is not being exactly direct where they want to put it, and you're just carrying it around for a few minutes and you're just like, where does it go? And then you try putting it down somewhere, and no, it doesn't go there. And then you have to like, oh wait, it doesn't go on the table, which would be easier for you. You have to put it underneath the table, but you need to put it underneath it in a certain way. So you have to sort of like bend your back and go in a weird angle while carrying this thing, which is really annoying. But also, I have a report. Unfortunately, I am getting faster and more efficient at my job, which sounds like a boast, but as long-time viewers will know, that due to pain and various pre-existing conditions, I have to leave work when I feel a certain amount of pain. And by doing the stuff faster and more efficiently, I am getting all the stuff done much faster. But that doesn't mean that I don't feel the pain from accomplishing those tasks. In fact, it gets worse because I'm doing more in less time. So I'm putting even more strain on my body. And I'm feeling even worse earlier. So I'm leaving earlier, getting the same or sometimes more work done. So my paycheck is getting smaller, but I don't know. It's just me being an idiot. The simple answer would be to slow down, but the problem is when everything sort of depends on you working at that speed. And also there's the other case. If I take too long, my boss has other people do the task for me, which is worse than all the other stuff. Because one, my coworkers don't make sure things are cold. They leave everything out so that it gets like overly warm. It turns the dough mushy, and it's not properly lined up. So, well, enough whining about my work. I actually have to go to work now. Sorry for literally just whining at you first thing in the morning, person. I hope you have a great day. I'll try to stream later. I don't know if it'll be Galarians or Cult of the Lamb. I started Galarians, so I think I should try finishing that first, even though I didn't get very far. I hope you have a great day. I'm sorry I haven't messaged you much on Discord. I'll see you later. Bye-bye. All right, bye for real.